All right, in this lesson, I'm going to show you guys how to find certain characteristics given the cosine function. So looking at this function here, we want to first off identify what the amplitude is. Now the amplitude has to do with the a parameter. Now you're not too sure what your parameters are. I always try to compare it to the general form first. So this is y is equal to the a cosine square brackets of x. Oh, this might be here. Square brackets b times x minus c, close your square brackets, plus d, okay? Now, when you want to find your amplitude, remember, is actually equal to your a value, but it's an absolute value because it's a distance value again. So my a value, looking at these functions and comparing them, my a value is actually the number in front, which is simply 3. Now if I take the absolute value of 3, I get 3. So there's my amplitude already done. Next thing we want to identify is the period. Now remember, we're working with a cosine function, and my function is more specifically given in radian form because, as you can see here, that is a radian there. So when we calculate the period for a cosine function, you do have to go back to this formula. Period is equal to 2 pi divided by the absolute value of b. Okay, now 2 pi, it goes on the top here. My b value from my function is the number in front of the x, but notice something very, very tricky here. As you notice here, the b in the general form is always factored out. Now, as you can see from the function given, if you look at the argument there, the b is not factored out, so you don't see another set of brackets here. So that is a key thing that you need to do here to find that b value. So y is equal to 3 cos brackets. If I factor out the b, I'm factoring out the number in front. So I'm going to factor out 2. And I'm going to get another set of brackets here. X plus 4 pi. Now, it's not going to be 4 pi over 3. I'm taking out 2. So in other words, I'm dividing by, I'm actually multiplying by a half here. So I get 4 pi over 6. Okay, so that changes the game for your phase shift here. That's why it's really important to always factor out your b. So my b value, as you can see here, is still 2. So it's 2 pi over the absolute value of 2, which gives me a period of just pi. So every pi radians, my graph starts to repeat itself. The next parameter or characteristic that we want to go ahead and identify is the phase shift. Now, because we already factored my function here, it's easy enough to identify that phase shift. That phase shift, remember, has to do with the c value. Looking at my factored argument, my c value is 4 pi over 6, but it's a positive, so you want to take the opposite of that sign. So my phase shift, in the end, is equal to negative 4 pi over 6. So in other words, I'm moving left because it's negative. I'm moving left 4 pi over 6 radians. Okay, so that's my phase shift done. Next thing I want to identify is the horizontal midline. Now remember, the horizontal midline is that line that goes right in the middle, and that's given by your vertical translation. My vertical translation is given by parameter d. Okay, now parameter d is the last number here. So here's d. So comparing these two functions together, therefore I can say that my d value is negative 13. Okay, so my midline is right at negative 13. So in other words, it's been translated down 13 units. Finally, we have the range. So to calculate the range, you need to know what your max and your min values are. Now my maximum point is obtained by taking my midline, which is 13, and adding my amplitude. And my amplitude was way back here at 3, so I'm going to add 3 to negative 13, which will give you negative 10. So there's my maximum y value for this graph. And the next thing we want to find is the minimum. To find the minimum, you're going to take your midline and now subtract the amplitude. Therefore, I get a minimum value of negative 16. So to sum up my range here, my range is therefore everything related to y. More specifically, y has to be greater than negative 10, and y has to be less, I'm sorry, I'm going to switch these around here. I'm sorry, has to be less than or equal to negative 10, which is the max. and it has to be greater than or equal to everything above negative 16, which is my minimum. Okay, so that is how you do that question. So the key with this question, for any question, always make sure that your b value is always factored out. And you can see that by looking at your argument and seeing that there actually is only one set of brackets. And if there's only one set of brackets, you need to create another set of brackets by factoring out the b. All right, and that's it.